are very excited because we finally finished several dozen hours of flights. We got here, we got our tickets, very excited. She says, oh, look, the airport is closed. So unfortunately we wait until the bad weather goes away and then we fly again.
So we could take a helicopter for $250 per person, which is twice as much as we're paying for this flight. On the other hand, the helicopter might get there. On the other hand, the helicopter might crash. So we think we're going to take a helicopter to Everest. If we die, this is the last you'll ever hear.
We're informed by the travel agent that the last time the helicopter crashed was 2 months ago, and before that, 3 months before that.
Is this your first time backpacking?
Seriously like this, yeah, probably.
Do you think you're going to make it out there?
That is just still up in the air. So.
We've crossed the point of no return now. We've paid the man, and we're reserved on a helicopter. They've given me a short crash course on how to fly it, so what's going to happen is we'll take off. We're going to see the weather when we get there, and if it's bad, we won't land, and then we'll go somewhere else. And if that's bad, we'll go somewhere else. And if that's bad, we'll just fly around for a while. And then eventually we might land, or we'll come back. We don't really know what's going to happen.
Who's this guy sitting next to you?
He's just my co-pilot.
I'm Hank Lucart, and I'm a writer, producer, and creator of the online travelogue WithoutBaggage.com, and I'm here with my brother.
I'm Brian Lucart, scientist and chemical engineer. I'm also an avid rock climber and experienced backpacker.
We live on opposite sides of the US, so every year we meet up to tackle a new adventure together. This year, after our father passed away, we wanted to spend some extra time together and go on the adventure of a lifetime. We've decided to travel to the Himalayan mountains in Nepal to make the long trek to Everest Base Camp and summit a nearby mountain, Kala Patthar. Most people do this trek using porters and guides, but we've decided to do it alone, by ourselves, carrying everything we need on our backs.
Though Everest itself stands at 29,029 feet, we won't be traveling all the way to the top. Starting in the small mountain village of Lukla, we'll trek up to Everest Base Camp, which stands at 17,700 feet.
Sorry guys, cloud cover is in the back. Not going to make it.
Wow. This is amazing.
We just landed here, half an hour from Lukla, in a helicopter which was supposed to take us past Lukla. It was a little unexpected, but it was a great ride nonetheless. And now we are going to find our way, without our guide, because we don't have one, to Lukla. Half an hour over that, what we call this a hill. What is a hill?
Today we've been walking across a lot of suspension bridges. These are seen all throughout the Himalayas, and they're a little rickety, and your footing is never quite as good as you'd like, and they sway around and they seem to go on forever. They're as iffy for the trekkers as they are for the yaks that cross them.
Gosh, I hate heights, so these bridges are like, they're super wobbly. You're just like above this rolling river that's terrifying, and you can see the prayer flag usually just like blowing in the wind, and so just scares the living daylights out of me every time.
Nepali Buddhists often attach prayer flags to long suspension bridges like these as a way to request safe passage from the gods as they cross the rickety construction.
Shit, my ankle! We're walking across a very nice suspension bridge lined with metal slats, and I misstepped and I sprained my ankle. That is very bad, as we have about, I don't know, 14 or 16 days left of hiking. I took some Advil and I'm able to hike on it, and we'll see how that goes. It's one of the scariest things that can happen in hiking is an injury. If I can't hike on a sprained ankle, it ruins the trip in a pretty big way.
Well, here we are in Lukla, and this is it's almost like a European village. And as you can see, the Starbucks coffee Lukla is right up ahead here. I don't have any idea if it's real, but the logo is certainly not real.
Early this morning, a herd of half bull, half yaks were coming towards me, and suddenly, out of nowhere, one charged me straight at me, and I had to dive out of the way to my right. And it drove right past me, and I looked back, and everyone in the street was running in all directions like crazy people. Now I'm forever terrified of those animals.
Believe it or not, one of the biggest hazards on this trek is trains of yaks. They're also a nuisance because they cause big traffic jams.
We're down here because sometimes in Los Angeles, surface roads are faster than interstates, and that holds true in Nepal too. As you can see here, there's the yak interstate is up here, and it's making it very difficult to pass, so we're taking the surface road down here.
There's two kinds of yaks that we see here. Bull yaks, which we see at the lower altitudes, which can both pull and carry supplies, and then normal yaks, which we see at higher altitudes, which can only carry supplies. The key with these yaks is to stay away from the cliffside when you pass them, otherwise they'll nudge you to your death.
People ask quite often why we do things like this, and I think behind me and in front of me is a pretty good example of why. As you can see, the mountains are beautiful. In this particular hike, the town is unlike anything we've ever seen in any of our hikes. And on this particular hike as well, we have many, many yaks. And the locals are very, very kind and nice. Namaste.
So we're here in Namche Bazaar, which is one of the biggest villages in the Khumbu. It used to be a very important trading post near the pass over to Tibet. Today it's more important just for trekkers, but it's filled with everything a trekker could possibly want. As we look through the market here, you can see there's gifts for anyone you could want to buy gifts for. There's warm clothes. There's prayer wheels. There's a yak bells. It goes on and on and on. There's nothing you can't find in Namche Bazaar.
Today we will go from Namche Bazaar on our acclimatization day on a side trip to Tami, and it's supposed to be one of the most exciting day trips that you can take from Namche Bazaar. We're going to take Yaki the yak, the asymmetrical yak, up to Tami with us, and it's going to be a great adventure. And this is Mount Everest.
No, it's not Mount Everest.
A few people die every year while trekking in Nepal, usually because a hiker didn't take enough time to acclimate before climbing to high altitude. So our hiking plan includes mandatory rest and acclimatization days to give our bodies time to adjust to the lack of oxygen. But because of our jobs, we have to stick to our schedule. We only have 14 hiking days to get to Everest Base Camp. Today we're hiking to Tame to acclimate ourselves. We're actually going to come right back to Namche Bazaar, but going up and then down is one of the best ways to get your body used to the thin air up here.
Here we are in a tea house on our way to Tami from Namche Bazaar. This is what Lonely Planet says is a convenience stop for tea. We're also having lunch here. So we ordered the cheese sandwich and we ordered the egg sandwich. When we ordered these sandwiches to go, the person who was to make the sandwiches said, "Oh no. Sandwiches do not have bread. You do not want to take these to go." And ever since then we've been perplexed and curious what an egg sandwich or a cheese sandwich is. So Hanks came out, he had ordered the egg sandwich, and what it was an omelet with cheese. And he ate it. And then we were sitting here, well, if that's an egg sandwich, what is a cheese sandwich? And then mine came out, and it was 2 fried eggs. Turns out the cheese sandwich is a cheese omelet, and the egg sandwich is 2 fried eggs.
I don't know, it looks kind of like the right goes up to a weird house and the left goes to the trail.
This looks more like a trail. This turns us around the wrong direction.
I think we may have gotten off the main trail. We're in a situation where we only have about an hour buffer time, so if we're lost for more than an hour, we're going to be hiking after sunset, and it is never good, especially around here. It seems to rain after sunset pretty regularly.
Why are we doing this? We got lost. We got on some trail that's clearly not a trail, and now we're having to walk through the farming fields of some yak herder to get back to the trail to tame. It's about maybe, I don't know, a 300-meter elevation change just to get back up to the trail. I'm not even sure. There was essentially a maze of stone walls that I can only suppose differentiates yak herders' land from others' land, and it surely works well for them, but it doesn't work well when you're trying to climb up a mountain.
So it's day 5 and we just left Namche Bazaar and we're on our way to She, which we expect to take about 4 hours. But a lot of it's going to be uphill and we're exhausted from our side trip to Tame yesterday, which took us over about 7 hours of hiking. So we're really tired, we're taking it really slow, but the scenery is absolutely spectacular out here. So we're gonna just keep on pushing and see how far we can get. We're standing here in Kumjung, a village above Namche Bazaar, and right behind me here is a statue of Sir Edmund Hillary, who of course was the first man to summit Everest along with Tenzing Norgay. After summiting Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary dedicated his life to the Nepal, Himalaya, and the Khumbu region. He made sure that a school was built here in Kumjung. He spent a lot of money and much of his time making sure that this region continued to be developed over the last 60 years. There's a lot of reasons that I love going on treks like this. Of course, one of the obvious ones is just to stay fit, but also I love to challenge myself and see what limits I can pass through and overcome. And I also just love the beauty of nature out here. I love getting to see parts of the world that I've never seen before and things that we never get to see in the United States. It's very important to me to force myself out of my comfort zone. I think people get used to life being a certain way, and I think one of the most wonderful things about traveling, and especially coming on a trip like this Everest Base Camp trip, is that it puts you way outside where you're comfortable. You're sleeping in cold rooms that aren't heated, and you're forced to hike thousands of meters upwards a day, and you're also forced to confront a culture and a language that you're not used to and you don't know, and you have to figure out how to navigate through that. And I think those are essential skills for anyone. And I also think that once you've done those things, sometimes they can be difficult, but in the end, it makes life a lot more fun. Yep, you just have to get here and then that's it. This is Namche.
Yep, I'm gonna make it.
Just kidding. Because you have to go up there. So I'm standing outside the tea house that we're staying at called Hotel Himalayan. And we're gonna take a look inside to see what these things are like. But first, just want to take a quick look around to see what it's like at the top of Namche. Over here you see mountains over here. This is where we came from. We came down from the bottom of this valley to climb all the way up to Namche. And you see these amazing mountain peaks over here. And then as we continue on, you see the monastery in Namche. So we're here at the top of the stairs of the 3rd floor of our tea house, and you can tell I'm tired just from walking up the stairs because we're at such a high elevation. So now we're going to take a look at what Brian and I call the plywood box, which is essentially what almost every room in the tea houses on the Everest base camp look like. So as you can see, we call this a plywood box because it is quite literally a plywood box with 2 beds and 2 blankets. No toilet, no shower, and a single light in the ceiling, and that's everything. You get that for 200 rupees, which is about $3. If you want a shower, it'll cost you an extra 300 rupees. This is a particularly nice plywood box because it has 3 windows. Most of them are completely dark, but this plywood box has a view of Mount Everest, Mount Lhotse, and Mount Dadla right from the window. And believe it or not, that is our first view of Everest.
Nighttime at the Hotel Himalayan, the tea house where we're staying, is an interesting time. The hotel common room comes alive with a flurry of activity, and they turn on the boiler. This is a treat, and I'll tell you why. This hotel is not heated at all. Right now, in our hotel room, and where I'm standing, it is about 30 degrees. Freezing. Literally. So, we're gonna go inside here. It's gonna be warm. That's why everybody's in there. People have ordered their food. They're drinking their tea. They're about to sit down to a nice meal of perhaps yak steaks or egg sandwiches or potato chips, which are potatoes, and they're gonna have a good time, so let's see.
I gotta love these yak dung powered boilers. I guess it's time to join these truckers and maybe have a yak steak.
Brian and I have a grand tradition of carrying and playing board games on these treks. Some people laugh at us for carrying all the weight, but it's a great way to relax after a long day, and it also helps us meet people. On this trip, we brought a Buddhist-themed game called Zendo, which uses crazy pyramids called ice house pieces that attracts people to us all the time and lets us get to know all the people in the tea houses that we're staying at.
I've always wanted to continue in Nepal, so I took 3 months off work and I've done trekking a couple times.
What do you do?
I work either as a business instructor or as a tour guide.
So that's interesting. I didn't know that.
You do.
So we're sitting here with Janelle from Perth, Australia, and we've been sitting in the warm tea house restaurant of our tea house, and we've learned that Janelle is doing Everest Base Camp by herself, no guide, no porter, and no one with her, and she's on her way down. Tell us what that was like.
That's really cool. The hike is fine, but altitude is the hardest part. The trails are easy.
Was it cold up there?
Freezing. I woke up this morning, my water bottle was frozen.
So we kind of look up to Janelle because she's one of the only other people we've met on the trek that is doing the trek without guides and porters, but on top of that, she's not doing it with her brother or sister. So we're very impressed with her, and we hope that we make it just like she did. So it's day 6, and we're at the top of a mountain in the town of Namche at 12,600 feet in the air, and it's darn cold up here. Also, there's a monastery up here. It looks ancient, though it actually hasn't been around for as long as it looks. It was built in 1916, and it burned down due to electrical fire in 1989, and it was only rebuilt and restored since then. So it's almost brand new, and we're gonna take a look inside and see what the monks are up to.
The religious history of the Himalaya is rich, but complicated. In the lower hills, Hinduism is more prevalent, whereas in the upper mountains, Buddhism is more prevalent. This would be simple enough, except that often Buddhism and Hinduism are combined into a hybrid sort of religion, and on top of that, the ancient animist religions also still exist, which means that you meet people who believe in many, many different types of religions all at the same time. Here we have a prayer wheel. You turn it clockwise, and when you turn it, all the prayers, millions of them, are released. And they go, and they come true. Behind me is one of the more ancient examples of a stupa. A stupa is a shrine that traditionally derives from Buddha's tomb, but has now come to represent existence itself. On the base is a white dome that signifies water, and moving up from there we have a sort of spire that represents fire. The spire is often ornamented with a lunar crescent and a disc representing air and space. These structures typically guard the towns and villages throughout Buddhist Himalaya. This particular stupa has the eyes on it, a sacred symbol of Buddhism itself, often called the sacred eyes.
Devotees of Buddhism desire to attain the ideals of Buddha himself, and Buddha saw the world as made up of pain and suffering and thought that that pain and suffering stemmed from desire. So by ridding yourself of possessions and desires, one seeks to attain enlightenment. So as for giving up desire and giving up possessions, interestingly, these trekking trips are the closest thing that I come to that in my life. In my daily life, I have electronic gadgets, I have a comfortable home, I have a job that gives me a lot of stress. But here, I carry the bare minimum that is needed for survival, and I'm here to see what there is to see in the world and see what my body and mind can do, see where my limits are. And I think that's the closest that I have ever come to the ideals of Buddhism.
So we're in the middle of day 7, and we're about halfway between Tangbo She and Pariche, which is where we're planning to stop for tonight. And the altitude is really starting to get to us. We're out here kind of on this strange, barren landscape. It's very quiet, and the ground is very flat and dusty, and there's this strange underbrush, and we're just very, very exhausted and fatigued. It feels like we kind of are sick, and we just don't have enough energy to move, even though we know that we're mostly healthy. And so we're just not getting enough oxygen. Things are getting tough. We've already run into a couple guys who had to have a helicopter evacuation due to altitude sickness, and we're so far from civilization that even small hiking injuries can ruin an entire trip. But we're just gonna carry on to Pariche, but with every step, it's just lots and lots of gasping for air.
Here in Pariche, we're seeing one of the first major Everest memorials, memorializing those who have fallen trying to ascend Mount Everest. This one, I'm not the artist, but this one in particular seems to represent Everest itself, and it's also split right down the middle, and the names of the dead are right there in the center of the mountain, as though the mountain itself swallowed them up. So there's some very interesting names on here if you've ever read Into Thin Air or know anything about this large 1996 disaster. Rob Hall from New Zealand, Scott Fisher from America, they died in that disaster. Also interesting is that as recently as last year, 4 people died on Mount Everest, and in 2007, 7 people died trying to summit the mountain. So Everest continues to be dangerous to this day, taking lives.
I've been writing a thesis for the last couple of years, and this is my end of thesis challenge, physical challenge reward. My friend Adrian had the idea to come here, and it sounded like a fabulous thing to do.
I'm here with Jenny. Jenny, why don't you tell us where you're from?
So my name is Jenny. I'm from Sydney, Australia.
And if you don't mind, just tell us your age. You don't have to.
Okay, I'm 53.
Okay, so tell us about what's happening now.
Okay. Yesterday, I slipped and twisted my ankle. I just been dreaming all night about my information.
This really hit a chord for me because I sprained my ankle on the second day of our trip, and I had this very deep fear that I wouldn't be able to make it to Everest Base Camp, and seeing that she had turned around, I really brought that back, and it was a little scary, but fortunately I'm on the mend. My ankle feels a little better every day, a little bit of pain, but I can still hike on it, and I'm confident for the future.
What does it mean to you that you've made it this far in the trek?
Because it wasn't easy.
Look, 92, oh, I think I feel it's fine. It would have been good to go. That would have been, the ultimate. Safety first.
Of course. The sleeping rooms are never heated, so I always go to sleep with my full coat, gloves, and hat on, knowing that probably during the night I'll warm up a little bit, but it's safest to go to bed with all the warm clothing on that you have. Oh, and the reason I'm wearing the headlamp is because the lights in all of these tea house rooms are usually too dim to accomplish any task whatsoever. That saves them a lot of electricity because much of the electricity is provided by solar power. So that explains why it looks like I am about to shovel snow in bed.
We discovered during our travels in the Khumbu region of Nepal that most restaurants have pretty much the same menu with a combination of American and Nepalese foods. But we've also found that unless you order local foods like dal bhat, which is rice and potatoes, then mostly the American foods aren't really going to be up to par.
However, at this particular place, we noticed that their sandwich section had a parenthetical. It said grilled. We ordered a grilled cheese sandwich, and for the first time on the entire trip, we received a grilled cheese sandwich, and it was amazing.
We've tried to go even a little bit more adventurous, and we've ordered from the same section of the menu a grilled fried egg sandwich, which we're going to try now. Now, normally we would expect this to be a total disaster with dry bread or no bread at all and just a fried egg on a plate, but we're going to see what happens here with this amazing fried egg sandwich. Here
This
it is.
one has cheese on it.
Looks like it has butter. Looks like it was grilled. I don't know, it looks pretty close to something you get in the United States. Perfect.
Exactly how I would make it.
The Himalayan Lodge, they know exactly what they're doing.
I may even try the French toast. When we arrived last night, I had a pretty bad headache, so I was a little worried that we wouldn't be able to hike anymore the next day. Fortunately, today is a rest day, so we're just going to take a short hike to Dingboshe, and then we'll sleep there tonight, which is only a short gain in elevation, which will be good for us to continue acclimatizing to the higher altitudes.
What are you smelling right now?
I'm smelling burning yak dung.
How do you like it?
It's the worst smell that's ever been created. It's somewhat sweet, but mostly pungent and makes me unable to breathe. But it's how they heat all of the common rooms of all the places we stay at. So there's a smokestack back there, and what's coming out of the smokestack is the smoke of burning yak dung. And it makes me sick.
It's harder, harder than I expected, but we're coping.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I'm 56. There's quite 16 of us. We haven't met before. We're just all booked up with the same company and we'll come together in Kathmandu.
My brother and I are doing this without guides and porters, so your trip sounds great.
You're crazy. Yeah, absolutely mad, yeah. We did that.
So, the place we stayed last night mercifully had hot showers. Not only does that mean we get to clean ourselves, but we also get to do laundry in the shower. The procedure is this. You wash the clothes, you rinse the clothes, and then you find some way of drying them. That means either you just put them outside, you put them near the boiler that heats the common room. This time we chose to put them outside, thinking that it would be sunny in the morning and they would be dry. However, that didn't happen. So we woke up, some of them are in fact dry. Miraculously dry. Some of them are frosty, like this one, almost dry, very close. And then we have the socks. Our socks are frozen solid. I don't know what to do.
So it's day 9 and we're here in Dingbo She, and as you can see it's snowing and very cold. We have all of our layers on. We spent yesterday kind of taking a little bit of a rest day here. We visited some stupas, we played some board games, and now we're on our way to Dugla and then to Lobouché. From Lobouché, it's only one more day to Gorak Shep, which is going to be the launching point that we're going to use to get to Kala Patthar and finally Everest Base Camp. So we're not that far, the excitement's building, and it is cold and snowy, but we're just thrilled that we're so close to our destination. So we're hiking up from Dugla to Lobouché, and we're hiking up a very, very steep mountain pass, and we are exhausted. This is probably one of the hardest parts of the hike that we've hit so far.
Behind me, there are some people running the highest marathon in the world. These people are crazy. Every 2 years in November, participants spend 2 weeks trekking to train for the 26-mile, 4-hour marathon from Gorak Shep all the way to Namche Bazaar. This morning, we interviewed a woman named Kay. She said, "We are mad." She called us mad. No, but these people are mad.
How are you feeling?
Better. I jumped out about half of my water.
Really?
Other than that, just total lack of basic needs, notably oxygen. There's not enough around. I think there's some over there.
We can't catch our breath no matter what we do. We sit for 10 minutes to try to catch our breath, and then we start moving a second, and we're just not getting any oxygen up here. It feels like there's almost no oxygen up here. We're standing here above Lobouché, only 2 days away from Everest Base Camp and only 1 day away from Kala Patthar, which is supposed to be one of the highlights of the trip. Behind me, you can see your first glimpse of the Khumbu Icefall, which is the first major obstacles that technical climbers need to cross when they try to climb to Everest. So it seems like we're almost close enough to Everest that we can taste it, except we wouldn't because our tongue would get stuck to the ice.
This ridge above Lobouché has a 360-degree view of mountains all around, which is stunning. but also unexpectedly stunning are the cairns scattered all around the ridge. Each rock placed here by someone who's hiked up here to signify that they've been here. It gives the place a peaceful feel, and it also gives you a feeling of camaraderie that so many people have been here before you, came here to see what you wanted to see, and now finally you're here to see it yourself.
The bathroom here smells so horrible. I can't go in that bathroom ever again. It's gonna, every time I go in, I want to vomit up everything I've ever loved.
So it's day 10, and we've just woken up, and we're 2 days from base camp, and I'm not feeling as well as I would like. I think I have a case of traveler's diarrhea, which is certainly not uncommon, but we have been very careful to be filtering our water and eat the right things, no raw vegetables. But nevertheless, I'm not feeling that great, so we're going to try to solve this problem. I'm going to be taking some broad spectrum antibiotic. I'm going to start with some Cipro. My blanket here says happy every day. So I'm going to take that mantra in stride and see if either the Cipro or the mantra can clear up my traveler's diarrhea and we can make it to Everest Base Camp. Yeah.
It is morning in Le Boucher, and we are going to take the 2-hour hike up about 200 meters in altitude to Gorak Shep. This is the jumping off point to Kala Patthar and Everest Base Camp itself. We're very excited, however, sometimes we don't feel so great. We're at a pretty high altitude, and that can cause dehydration. Dehydration is very common in the wilderness, whether because of overexertion, dry air from high altitude, or perhaps traveler's diarrhea.
Okay, so how far do you think we are from Le Boucher toward Gorak Shep?
Well, we've ascended about, 50 of the 200 meters. Probably walked a quarter of a mile at most.
How are you feeling?
I feel extremely tired.
I feel horrible. I have diarrhea. I feel like I have the flu. My whole body is achy and unable to move, and even though I'm hiking, it's very slow. I'm very tired. I do not feel good.
So, this was accounted for in the original schedule. Take an extra day when we feel like crap.
So, we're going to burn this rest day. This does make it a little more urgent that we try not to burn too many other rest days, because it makes it that we really have to get there. I feel very disappointed that we're not going to make it to Gorak Shep today, but I don't think I can make it there. I don't think I can make it there today. It's hard to blame us with food poisoning, altitude, colds, yaks. It's a hard trek.
Okay, some yaks are coming right now. I don't think they care enough to not step in the camera.
So we better cut this short.
We're gonna cut this off.
Immediately. The yaks are coming!
Oh my god.
Yesterday, Hank spent the day in the bed, sleeping it off.
I slept 24 hours in a room without ever leaving almost.
I still didn't have any appetite, so I didn't feel 100% either, but I felt better than Hank.
And then last night we went to bed again after having a very small dinner. Neither of us had very much of an appetite. And what happened when we woke up this morning?
This morning, we thought we'd have the most unoffensive breakfast possible, a pancake and Sprite. We thought that couldn't possibly be a problem. And we finished that. I took forever to finish it. Hank went to filter water, I went to change my clothes, and that's when I threw up.
In Brian's defense, the pancake did taste like glue.
It was terrible, but I don't think that's why I threw up. I just think it was
The food poisoning that came a day later than Hank's.
So now Brian has food poisoning. I'm feeling a bit better, but we've decided to spend another day here in Le Boucher in the same tea house. And we're hoping that tomorrow we'll be able to get to Gorak Shep. In the past 3 days, I've probably eaten about 4 meals. 5 meals? I don't know, not enough food.
Yesterday evening, I ate half a plate of mashed potatoes, and this morning I ate an entire plate of mashed potatoes, which brings my meal total over the past 3 days to probably 3 full meals if you added them correctly.
This morning we're in better shape. We still don't feel perfect, but we think it's time to head up to Gorak Shep, which is a launching point for our trips to Kala Patthar and Everest Base Camp, which are the crowning achievements of our trip. We think we're gonna make it, but we're a little shaky, so we'll see what happens.
Now that we're above Pariche, we're in very high altitude, and because the food poisoning has not allowed us to eat anything pretty much, this entire hike up here feels like some crazy fever dream.
What time is it, brother?
It's 6:40. Are you awake?
No.
Neither am I. I'm asleep. I'm dead asleep.
We must get to the top today.
I can't climb it. I was up all night going to the bathroom. Food poisoning. How are you?
I threw up last night.
Oh no. Today's the day we go to base camp.
Yes, we have to. It has to be. We don't have any more time to waste. There's no oxygen up here.
I can't breathe at all.
It smells like yak dung.
Oh god, it does smell like yak dung. Burning yak dung. Oh, jeez. How long will it take us to get to base camp?
And back? 6 hours.
I could walk 20 minutes before I would need to go to the bathroom again. So at that rate, it's a lot. I'm not gonna make it. It's freezing in here. It's 38 degrees in this room. It's 38 degrees. We're not getting out of bed.
I'm going to sleep.
Good night. So it's morning in Gorak Shep, and I'm standing next to one of the stranger things that we've seen on this trip, which is a beach/sand volleyball court here in the high Himalaya in one of the most remote places on Earth. We haven't seen anyone play yet, but we're going to see if we can find a volleyball. But the real order of the morning is that we're on our way to Everest Base Camp. This is the grand finale of our journey. Yesterday, we weren't sure we'd even be able to get out of bed anytime soon, let alone hike the 6 hours to one of the farthest reaches of the Earth. But we're here now. We know that we won't see anyone at base camp because no one summits Everest this time of year, but we'll be standing in a place where legends have passed before us. We're talking about Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, the first 2 guys who ever summited the mountain. We're talking about people like John Krakauer, who were around during the 1996 Everest disaster, not to mention Jomling Tenzing Norgay's son, Rob Hall, the New Zealand Everest summit guide, who famously died during that 1996 expedition, and all the other people that have summited Everest and succeeded and failed.
This is the place where all of them have passed through to try to get to the highest mountain on Earth, Mount Everest, and that is quite something compared to all the places we've been in the world. I think the historical aspect of this place touches me most. Every step we take today feels like an arduous chore, and it seems like there's no way we'll ever make it. Hiking with food poisoning without having eaten in 2 days is like hiking through molasses with a meat grinder in your stomach. But sometimes when you have a goal like that, you just stick to it and you keep going, and we just kept trudging on. Money,
So this is it. Everest Base Camp. Jeez. 17,300 feet. We've made it.
Very good, brother.
We've made it. This is a very, very long journey, all the way from Suke to Lukla to here, and it's amazing. It was great doing it with you.
Very good. My favorite part of this trip and every other trek that we've been on in the past 5 years has just been the fact that I get to do this with my brother, and I think he would agree that neither of us would make these by ourselves. Some days I am motivating Hank, and sometimes Hank is motivating me, so that really gets us to where we need to be eventually. And being able to spend that time with my brother, even though we live on opposite coasts, is invaluable.
My favorite part of this trip, of course, was getting to spend all this great time with my brother. Our father passed away this year, which was very sad for both of us, but he had a very rich and full life, and we strive to both live the same kind of rich and full life that he did, and I think that we are kind of living in his footsteps by doing wonderful things like this, by spending time with each other in Nepal.
Everest Base Camp itself is steeped in history. Sir Edmund Hillary, Tenzing Norgay, the first to ascend Mount Everest, have all stepped foot at Everest Base Camp because that's where you must start if you're going to get to the top of Everest. Unfortunately, you can't actually see Mount Everest from Everest Base Camp. You can see the Khumbu Icefall, which is the first obstacle you must pass to get to Everest, but you can't see the peak of Everest itself. In contrast, this unassuming brown mound behind me is known as Kala Patthar. From the top of Kala Patthar, you have an unobstructed 360-degree panoramic view of the giants that surround us in the Himalayas, including Mount Everest, Lhotse, Nuptse, and several other of the largest mountains in the world. This is where we're going today, and we're very excited to get to see it.
Kala Patthar may not look like much, but its 18,471 feet is the highest point we will reach on our trip, and it's a grueling climb. Hiking at altitude is one thing, but hiking with food poisoning and without having eaten for 2 days with altitude is a whole other ballgame. It's like hiking in a haze and you barely know what's going on. The air we're breathing up here has about half as much oxygen as its sea level, and we can feel it. We can barely breathe, we're gasping for air.
Is this it?
Kala Patthar!
We made it!
Look at the view, it's amazing! Victory!
It's sunset, Kala Patthar at sunset. It's one of the absolute highlights of the trip. You can see the shadow creeping up Mount Everest and Nuptse behind me. Mount Everest is further in the distance than Nuptse, and from this angle actually Nuptse looks a little bit higher than Everest, but don't worry, Everest is still the tallest mountain in the world. The hike up here was incredibly difficult. Previous to today, we spent 3 days holed up in Low Boucher with some of the worst food poisoning I've ever had.
This is the biggest achievement that we will achieve on this trek. From here, you can see Everest right over my head. We can also see Everest Base Camp from here. We can see the Khumbu Icefall that many people have tried to cross to climb Mount Everest and have died. And we can see part of the route to get to the top of Everest. It's really just an amazing moment to be here.
But we finally made it. There's no way I would have made it up here without Hank with me. So it's great that we get to do these things every year. And it appears that neither of us can complete our interviews with any success without tears. But it is amazing up here.
It's a really amazing thing when you can put your mind to something and accomplish it, no matter how difficult it is. And that's something that we did here, and that's something that the climbers that climbed Everest have done as well. What's amazing about the trek to Everest Base Camp is that even though it is incredibly difficult, it is something that almost anyone can do because it is not technical. And so, I urge anyone who has the gumption and the will to leave their warm house and to travel around the world. And if it's not this trek, it can be anything. But to get that perspective and to see the world, because at the end of the day, you're going to be glad you did.
Last time you saw us, we had just reached Kala Patthar and Everest Base Camp, and that was the end of our trip. We made it. Congratulations to us.
Except that was actually not the end of our trip. Since we made it to Everest Base Camp, we've still been hiking. We have to hike for 4 more days all the way from Everest Base Camp back to Lukla, where we started. One of the funnest things about going down the mountain this way is that we're getting to see all the people climbing up, and we get to cheer them on and see how they're feeling as we go down and they go toward Everest Base Camp.
Yes, everyone we see coming up is completely exhausted, out of breath, because they have not yet acclimatized to the atmosphere. There's not enough oxygen for them. For us, however, we are awash in oxygen. We have no problem breathing at all. So we are smiling and happy, and they're miserable, but we cheer them on.
So we're having a great time. We wish them all the best of luck, and we hope you enjoyed watching us, because this is now really the end.